I'm going to walk you guys through a few of these questions on the Ready section to help you out if you are stuck. So the directions say to solve for a variable and solve for x. So what that means is that we want to get x to be the only thing on one side of the equal sign. So in number 1 here, the first thing I'd have to get rid of is the plus 2. And in order to get rid of something, you have to do the inverse or the opposite of what the problem is doing. So since the problem says plus 2, I'm going to subtract 2. Okay, but what I do to one side of the equation, I also have to do to the other side. So by subtracting 2 on the right-hand side, positive 2 minus 2, just going to be 0. So those are going to cancel out. And then 17 minus 2 is going to leave us with 15. And then on the right-hand side of the equation, we have 5x left. So again, x is still not by itself. So what I want to do is I want to get rid of this 5 next to the x. And in order to do that, I need to do the opposite of what the problem's doing. So the 5 and the x are actually being multiplied. So the opposite of multiplying is dividing. So I'm going to divide by 5 on each side. These 5s are going to cancel out. And then we are going to be left with x on the right-hand side of the equation. And then on the left-hand side, 15 divided by 5 is 3. So that would be the answer. And one thing you could do if you're still unsure is check your work. So if I just got the answer that x is equal to 3, I can go back to the original problem and I could substitute a 3 in for the x and see if it's true. So it says 17 equals 5. Instead of an x, I'm going to substitute in a 3. And then I'm going to just simplify and see if I get 17. So 5 times 3, I'd have to do that part first. So 5 times 3 is 15 plus 2. And then to simplify even further, 15 plus 2 is 17. So the fact that I got 17 equals 17 means that I am correct. All right. Okay, next one I want to talk about is number 3. Again, we are trying to get this x here by itself. But in order to do that, I noticed that there's this square root sign. So I want to get rid of that. So in order to get rid of a square root, I have to do the opposite of square rooting, which is squaring. But again, I have to do that to each side of the equation. Okay, so on the right-hand side, I'm going to cancel out the square root sign and the 2. So on the right-hand side, what's going to be left is the 2x plus 1. On the left-hand side, I need to do 11 squared. So if I do that on my calculator or in my head, I got 121. And then now this problem looks very similar to number 1. Okay, so I just want to get x by itself, and to do that, I'm going to first subtract 1 from each side of the equation. These ones are going to cancel out, and then I'm going to be left with 2x on the right-hand side, and then 120 on the left. Next thing I'm going to do is divide by 2, because the 2 and the x are being multiplied. Okay, these 2's are going to cancel out, leaving us with x equals, and then 120 divided by 2 will give me 60. Again, if I wanted to double check, I could substitute the 60 back in for the x right there and see that everything checks out. All right, the last one I want to talk about is number 5. 5's a little bit different. It's kind of similar to number 3, but instead of a square root, it is the cubed root. So, kind of just do this here. Okay, so the fact that number 3 was a square root means that I had to square each side when I did the opposite. But since number 5 is the cubed root, I want to cube each side of the equation. So now the cubed root is going to cancel out with the cubed, and that's going to leave me with just 5x plus 1. On the left-hand side, I need to do negative 4 cubed, which is like negative 4 times negative 4 times negative 4. So I know negative 4 times negative 4 is going to be a positive 16, but then I still have to multiply that by the third negative 4, and that is going to be negative 64. So I'm going to put that on the left-hand side here. And now again, this equation looks like number 1. So I would subtract 1 from each side. The 1's would cancel out, and I would be left with 5x on the right. Negative 64 minus 1 is going to be a negative 65. And then lastly, to get x by itself, I want to divide each side by 5. The 5's would end up canceling out, and then that would leave me with x on the right-hand side. On the left-hand side, I'm going to have to do negative 65 divided by 5. So a negative divided by positive is a negative, and then 65 divided by 5, if you just use your calculator, you would get 13. Okay, so all the questions on the ready are going to be very similar to those 3 examples that I just showed you.